What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Infamous Ghost Money, back at you with another fraud case. This time involving a bank website spoofing scheme that banged out over 70 victims for over $50 million. And yo, the scheme is one thing, but what's even more crazy is the way that the feds was able to crack this case, which led to the arrest of two scammers involved in the scheme. And let me just say this right now, no matter what you do, if them boys want to get you, they gonna get you. Facts. So make sure you hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel to add some quality, informative, and entertaining content to your YouTube timeline and stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. Alright, let's get right into the information. Wednesday, January 5th, 2022, Irvine, California man Alan Giltman admits to his role in a $50 million wire and security fraud scheme. From 2012 to October 2020, Giltman and others were involved in a scheme where they created fake bank websites which advertised various financial products, specifically CDs with above average rates, that they would then use to lure victims into giving up hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. Now, just in case you ain't familiar with what a CD is, CDs are also known as certificates of deposits, which is a type of savings account where you put in a lump sum of money and lock it up for a fixed period of time as it earns interest month over month. People usually do CDs because they earn a higher interest rate compared to a regular savings account, and it's a safe way to earn interest on money that you aren't willing to risk in the stock market. For this reason, folks usually closer to the age of or in retirement will set up CD accounts so their retirement money can continue to grow while avoiding any risk. CD interest rates are constantly fluctuating, so people who actively save money in CDs are always hunting for the best rate, and that's one of the main reasons why this scheme was so successful. According to the case paperwork, Giltman and his posse would create phony or spoofed bank websites using web addresses that were very similar or related to legit institutions that were designed to closely resemble their actual websites. For example, they created two fraud websites for the bank BNY Mellon using the links bnymelloncdrates.com and bnymellonpershing.com, which to an unaware person browsing the web would probably not catch on that they are on a fugazi website. And I mean, clearly it worked because the scheme ran up over $50 million. I'm just saying. Giltman and his posse would pay for internet advertising, which allowed for their phony websites to rank in Google and Bing searches for phrases like best CD rates or highest CD rates, which allowed for their spoof bank pages to easily be found by savers eagerly searching for the best interest rates. Now, I was interested in seeing if I could find any of these phony bank websites, so I searched Google myself, and I was surprised to see how easy it was for me to find two of them within minutes. The sites I found had extremely similar designs, and both banks claimed to have their headquarters at the same location in Uniondale, New York. And when I looked into this address, it seems like it was associated with Flushing Bank, which from my research is a legit banking institution. I also tried to search the domain one of these sites was created on, and it seems like it was recently created on April 20, 2022, and associated with a mailing address in Iceland. When I further looked into that Iceland address, it seems like it's a common address associated with many phishing emails and spoofed websites, and several people online have been actively reporting them. At this point, I noticed I was going down a crazy rabbit hole, but it was interesting to see how easily someone could end up on one of these fake bank websites. Anyway, when a victim would come across one of Giltman and his posse's phony bank links, they would be directed to email or call a phone number on the page in order to speak with an account executive who, according to the paperwork, was actually Giltman posing to be an actual employee of the bank. Giltman would tell the victims everything they wanted to hear to gain their buy-in on signing up for these fake CDs, and once the victim was fully sold, they would be sent a bogus application to complete along with instructions on where to have the money wired to fund the so-called new accounts. And as I'm sure you could guess, once the posse got a hold of the victim's bread, they would be gone with the wind. The paperwork related to the case calls out a victim who fell for the CD scam on September 2020, back when they were looking for a place to save 20 years of their life savings. During their search, they would discover a bank website which they believed was Asian Pacific National Bank that was advertising very attractive interest rates. They would eventually begin communicating with an individual from the website who introduced himself as Mr. Su, a supposed senior account executive for private accounts at the bank whose email was associated with Proton Mail. The victim would communicate back and forth with Mr. Su for about a week before he would decide that he wanted to purchase a $200,000 5-year CD. On September 25, 2020, the victim would be emailed an account application asking for his and his wife's personal information, along with how much money they plan to fund the CD with. The application looked like a regular old bank application and even had the bank's official logo on it. So it had to be legit, right? Anyway, the victim would complete the application the same day and forward it back to Mr. Su, who would waste no time in sending them an introductory account opening email with their new account number, along with the interest rate of their new 5-year CD coming in at a whopping 3.56%. The victim would also be sent wire instructions indicating to wire the funds to a foreign account in Hong Kong. And if only this poor guy knew he was about to lose all his money for a potential 3.5%. Mr. Su would reach out to the victim later that same day, asking for a confirmation receipt for the sent wire, but the victim still had some additional questions regarding the account before he was ready to send the money. Mr. Su would immediately answer all his questions, and just like that, on September 28, 2020, the victim would send over a wire for $200,000. Several days later, the victim would receive an email from Mr. Su with a fake bank statement showing their new account was successfully funded, as well as letting them know that they would be receiving a temporary password in the near future, which would allow them to log into the client portal to view their account information online. Several weeks later, the victim would reach out to Mr. Su to follow up on this apparent online information that he still hadn't received, and Mr. Su would assure him that the information was on its way and blame the delay on the impact that the pandemic was having on mail servicing. Well, that package never came, and the victim would eventually reach out to Asian Pacific Bank directly, and at that point, he would be informed that he had no CD account with the bank and that this CD scam that he unfortunately fell victim to was actively being investigated by the FBI. Giltman and his posse would run this play and variations of it throughout the 8 years the scheme was active, impacting over 70 victims for approximately $50 million. Now, the way Giltman pulled off the scheme was very clever, and that's one thing. But what I found even more interesting was the amount of thought he put into covering his tracks, which makes sense since he was able to pull it off for nearly 10 years. But to all the scammers out there, listen close, because no matter how on point you think your Jouet is, if you truly going hard out there, law enforcement will eventually be on you. Facts. According to the paperwork, Giltman put in enough work in ensuring he wasn't detected throughout the scheme. First, all the calls he made came from prepaid and voice over IP phone numbers, and he of course used fake email addresses and messaging apps when he would communicate with victims and other members of the scheme to further hide his traces. Next, he would use a VPN for everything he did online, and also use prepaid cards that he purchased with cash to pay for website domain registration, internet ads, and all the call services he used as part of the scheme. He would also use fake and stolen information for everything he registered for online, so it made it pretty damn difficult to track his fraudulent actions back to himself. And when it came to cashing out, he wasn't dumb enough to have the money sent to an account that he controlled. No. He would have the dirty money sent to other members of the scheme who opened business accounts in their names to be used as mules in receiving the stolen money. And once the money was successfully laundered through a mule, he would have his cut sent to a business he controlled named IRL Financial Corporation. One of the mules who ended up getting busted as part of the CD scam is Dennis Sotnikov of Hollandale Beach, Florida, who on November 4th, 2022 was sentenced to 45 months in prison for his role in laundering the dirty money. According to Sotnikov's paperwork, he formed many of the companies that was used in the latter portions of the scheme, and Homeboy was definitely a crash test dummy because all these businesses were opened using his real information. Once he would receive the funds, he would further transfer the money to other members of the scheme internationally, as well as transfer funds to his and his wife's personal accounts that they would use for personal items, doctor bills, jewelry, and lavish vacations. So compared to Giltman, Sotnikov was clearly not cautious at all. But even with that, y'all, your boy still got caught slipping. According to the paperwork, the feds would begin investigating the prepaid phone numbers that was used throughout the scheme to communicate with the victims, and from their investigation, they would obtain AT&T GPS and cell tower records that they would cross-reference and find a connection with a 6664 number that happened to be subscribed to, you guessed it, Giltman at his home address in Irvine, California. One example of this is on July 11, 2019, cell phone tower records would show Giltman's phone at the same location as a phone that was used to communicate with a victim who fell for the CD scam on the same day. They would also cross-reference Giltman's travel and financial records with the cell tower information and discover on June 25, 2019, while Giltman was traveling to New York, he would receive a call on one of his prepaid phones from a potential victim that connected to a cell tower that his actual phone also connected to an hour later. Or on December 19, 2017, a victim would call one of Giltman's burner phones while he was traveling in Salt Lake City, Utah, that would connect to a cell tower at the same exact location that his phone was at as well. The feds would go all the way in and cross-referencing Giltman's cell phone information and pick up tons of points that connected the prepaid phones right back to him. And once they got your boy on that, they would eventually uncover his IRL Financial Corporation bank account that was associated with his real phone number and identity, and discover approximately $7.5 million in incoming international wire transfers from countries such as Hong Kong, Hungary, Turkey, and Cyprus that were also associated with the same accounts that the victim sent money to as part of the CD scheme. According to the paperwork, Giltman would use his cut of the funds on expenses related to him and his family, including multiple luxury vehicles and expensive jewelry, rent on a home in a gated community, trips all over the globe, real estate, and payments on his kids' private school tuition. And the feds had no explanation on how Giltman was able to afford all this because outside of scamming people, homeboy had no legit sources of income. So from all this, Giltman would eventually plead guilty, no pun intended, on January 5th, 2022, and is scheduled to be sentenced on March 22nd, 2023. Now, the paperwork isn't specific with how much Giltman is going to have to pay back for his role in the scheme just yet, but it does list several pages of items he must forfeit that he purchased with his proceeds, such as a 18-karat rose gold Bulgari serpentine necklace that I found online for $47,000, and this 18-karat white gold Van Cleef & Arpels Lotus between the finger diamond ring for nearly $37,000, and this 45,000 Cartier Boulogne Blue 18-karat rose gold timepiece. And that's just 3 items, y'all. This thing is 5 pages long. So you already know Giltman was going all the way in with these people's money. I think this case is a good example of a pretty smart fraudster being outsmarted by the feds. It makes me think of all the scammers who think they are above the law and will never get caught. No matter how smart, slick, or thorough you may think your scheme is, law enforcement will always have the upper hand. Listen, y'all. Everything we do is tracked in some way or another, so all it requires is for them boys to request it and put in a little bit of effort for them to have all your business exposed. And finally, in researching this case, I also discovered an FDIC website called Bank Find Suite that can be used to verify bank web addresses and names. This tool is super easy to use and has all the FDIC insured banks and their affiliates on it. So if you're on the search for a bank product online and things seem a little too good to be true, make sure you check it out through that website real quick, because you could be saving yourself thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money for doing it. But with that being said, that's the end of the video. You already know, if you found any value or you were entertained, please go ahead and hit that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel to add some quality, informative, and entertaining content to your YouTube timeline and stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. All right, peace.